welcome back to my channel. Hope you're doing well. It's been a while. I keep saying that every time I film a video. I'm like, oh, it's been a while because I'm not filming as often as usual. So today we're filming in my lounge room. It may look similar to the usual background, but I just need to film in a different space. Like, that room is just chaotic right now because I've just cleaned out like the baby room and like set a lot of the baby room up. And the baby room used to be a storage room for all my shit. So I've had to pull everything out of that room and place it in that room, and it's just chaotic. Anyway, so the sound may be a little bit off, the lighting may be a little bit off. I have my heater on, so you may be able to hear that. If I can pull out the good editing skills, maybe you won't hear the heater. Also, the hair, all right? I know, it's a thing. It's a thing. Every time I film a video, I've got to talk about my hair. Say goodbye to the blonde. Listen to me, right? I love being blonde. I've been blonde before. I used to be platinum back in the day, but I decided to go blonde just as COVID hit. And we were in, like, well, I was in lockdown for pretty much 2 years. And every time lockdown was lifted, I'd go and get my hair done, and then we'd get locked down again. And my hair has just been trashed. It is so unhealthy. And the maintenance is just so hard. Like, if you're not a natural blonde, artificial blonde is a lot. And with the baby coming, I cannot be bothered with caring about my hair, being unhappy with it every time I look at it. So we're going back brunette tomorrow. I want to go like a copper, like, which is kind of pretty much what my natural shade is, which is like a copper, like a dark copper brown. Don't know how it's going to turn out, but you'll see it on Instagram tomorrow probably. Anyway, that's not why I'm here. We're not here to talk about my fucking life and my hair dramas. We're here to talk about 𝐒𝐒𝐈𝐊𝐒, okay? Bitch. Now, I wasn't actually planning on doing this video, but I spoke briefly on Instagram, and tons of you said that you were interested, because I said on Instagram, like, do you care to see a review video? Like, do you want to know my thoughts? Like, do you even fucking care? And all of you were like, yeah, bitch, we want to see it. So that's why I'm here. So I read 𝐒𝐒𝐈𝐿𝐿e's new release, which was technically the third installment to her new series, which is the Next Generation series from Born in Blood and the 𝐒𝐒𝐈𝐿𝐿e's Chronicles. Now, Born in Blood and the 𝐒𝐒𝐈𝐿𝐿𝐿e's Chronicles, if you are a subscriber of mine that has been around for a long time, you know those two series are my heart and soul. I have hyped them up. I have done so many Mafia videos where I've spoken about these books. I've done dedicated Mafia videos just to those books. You know, like, I love that series, well, both of them. So when I found out that 𝐒𝐒𝐈𝐿𝐿𝐿e was going to be writing the next generation of the kids, I was so fucking pumped, man. I was so fucking pumped. But there was a couple of releases before this series that kinda dampened the mood, if you know what I mean. Like Fragile Longing and Twisted Cravings. I did videos for them. And I wasn't a massive fan and was kind of disappointed with those books. So going into the Next Generation, because I'd had so many unpleasant experiences reading 𝐒𝐒𝐈𝐿𝐿e's books, I didn't want to have any expectations. Because here's the thing, right? With Born in Blood and the 𝐒𝐒𝐈𝐿𝐿e's Chronicles, I don't like the entire series. There is certain books I prefer over other books, right? But the books that I love the most in both those series outweigh the negatives. And I really hope that this is the case for this series. Now, by Sin I Rise, I did a reading vlog for part 1, which you can watch if you would like, if you haven't already. And I kind of just read the book, talk about my feelings. I had an expectation for that particular book, Marcella's book, because I'd seen like snippets of who Marcella was going to be and what she was going to be like in 𝐒𝐒𝐈𝐿𝐿e's Facebook group. But then when I read the book, I was like, what the actual fuck? I feel like By Sin I Rise would have been the perfect book for a boss-ass, badass bitch that was going to turn the Mafia world upside down. And it just wasn't that. It was so lackluster in my mind. And then when part 2 came out, I was just like, what the actual fuck? It was one of my most disappointed reads that I have ever read, and especially of last year. Now, before I get into the most recent book in my thoughts. I don't do this. I don't sit down and bash books. I am an aspiring author, bitch, and if someone did this to me, it would break my heart. But I've got to be real and I've got to be honest, and I have very strong opinions. Like, my opinions aren't directed at her, but there's just something not clicking, bitch. And the whole vibe has been lost. Like, her Mafia world is drowning. I need to talk about it. Like, I just need to vent about it. So yeah, by 𝐒𝐿𝐻 Rise, I was fucking really disappointed by that. Like, that, oh my God, could have been so much better. Especially because the snippets were like, you know, Marcella came across as this, you know, rich Mafia princess that wears red bottoms, you know what I mean? Like Louboutins. You know, she's in New York going to nightclubs and shit. Those snippets that I read in the Facebook group, I was like, oh, yes, I'm ready for her. But then when I met her, I was like, who the fuck are you? What the fuck are you? What is this? The teasers for the hero in by 𝐒𝐿𝐻 Rise Part 1 and 2. Sorry, what? Like, he was meant to be like this badass fucking bikey hero. This crazy dude whose nickname is Mad Dog. And he was an actual fucking pussy, man. I could not get into that relationship because I just could not even stand him. Anyway, so when it came to By Virtue I Fall, which is Anna's book, I didn't have any expectations whatsoever until I read the blurb. When Cora released the blurb, I was like, yes, Cora, do the damn thing. The blurb is beautiful. It talks about a bodyguard romance, this like forbidden love with this older man. Anna's not meant to fall in love or, you know, start a relationship with her bodyguard who is exceptionally older than her. And there was this whole element of like going to Paris to fashion school, and I read the blurb and I was like, oh, this sounds brilliant. This sounds right up my alley. I can't wait to see what Cora does with this book. And I read it last week when it was released, and oh my God, I wanted to cry from frustration. I did not like it. I rated it 3 stars. Now, hear me out. I know there's tons of people who loved Anna's book. This is what happens when you're a reader. There's going to be billions of people that like the same books that you do, and then there's going to be another billion that don't. That doesn't mean anything. We just have different reading tastes. Some things tickle your fancy, some things don't tickle mine. That's all it is. This is nothing against Cora's actual writing style. I love her writing style. Even when I was reading Anna's book, I was like, oh, just so easy to read. I can just sit here and read it, and it just plays in my head like a movie. It's just great. It's just short and just and I just like I love it, okay? But the actual plot and the characters, I was like, oh, hit and miss, baby. Hit and miss. I did write some notes down, so let me get my notes up. The first thing I wrote down is the blurb and how it doesn't correlate with the book, really. Like, you do go to Paris and fashion design is intertwined into the story, but it's not like a heavy part of the plot. And I feel like reading the blurb, you would think the entire book would be set in Paris, but it wasn't. There was only like a quarter of the book that was set in Paris, and time jumps. We'll get to the time jumps. They were like in Paris living their best, and then all of a sudden it was like 3 years later and they're leaving Paris. The time jump really ruined the flow of the book, and especially the Paris aspect. The next thing is these little kind of, I don't know how to explain this. I was trying to talk to the Book Refuge, Jen, the other day about it, and I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say here. And I've got pregnancy brain, so be kind. My brain is literally a whole lot of grey matter right now. She does this with a lot of her books. Because The Born in Blood, The Camorra Chronicles, and her standalones, Sweet Temptation and Fragile Longing, are all intertwined, you meet all these characters and you read all these little backstories. So when she goes to write a brand new story about 2 characters that she's spoken about but hasn't written their story yet, she does these kind of little chapters that aren't chapters, explaining the relationship between her and Santino, explaining certain relationships that have happened in previous books, but it's like a little recap, like tiny little recaps, really. And I don't like how she does that. That was one of my problems with The Born in Blood, was the fact that there was a lot of repetitiveness. Like, if you read Bound by Honor and then went into the next book, Bound by Hatred, you would cross over and double up on reading the same kind of scenes. She's doing that again, and I don't like that, because my personal favorite books that she has written, like Sweet Temptation, Twisted Emotions, the story starts when the couple is kind of introduced, and then it goes in real time after that. Do you know what I mean? I hope this makes sense. Whereas with this book, it wasn't like that. Instead of showing you in real time the tension, the build-up, the angst between Anna and Santino, Cora just told you. There was a little section, Anna when she was 13 lusting over him, and then there was the next section where there was like some banter between them, some bickering between them when she was like 15, and then the next section, and it was just like telling you what their relationship is instead of showing you, and I can't stand that. It takes away how believable the romance is. Like, I can't believe a romance if I'm not in it with them as each scene plays out. I don't want like recaps. I don't want to be told what's happening. I want to feel it. I want to see it. I want to be there. Trying to like not give anything away just in case you haven't read it. This is a love triangle. Well, no, it's not a love triangle because she doesn't have feelings for the other hero. But even the way that was set up, I honestly wish the book was set up like this. Opening. Her and Clifford have announced their relationship, their engagement, and they're dating, and there's feelings. But then Anna goes to Paris with Santino as her bodyguard, who she's been lusting over since she was a kid, and boundaries are crossed and lines are blurred. It could have just gone bang bang, like straight into it, and then we would have had a full-length book of like all Paris, Anna and Santino, maybe a couple of awkward phone calls with Clifford. I would have been so much more happier and satisfied with that instead of all these little like explanations for her relationship with her bodyguard. Also, I didn't like the fact, like, I know that Anna was meant to be cunning and all these things. I love a woman in a romance who is a bitch, man, badass, cunning, manipulative. But the one thing that was missing with Anna, and this is something that I like with my heroines, is they understand the gravity of the situation even though they are being manipulative. Like, they know if they keep pushing and whatever they're aiming for is successful, then, you know, someone's life could be on the line. And they get that. They understand that. Where Anna just like tormented this man, teased him beyond belief, and was just so blasé about it. And it's like, you do know that in the real world, and in the world that Cora previously set up, Santino can die and will die if Dante finds out. And she just showed zero care factor for that. Like, she was just like, I just want what I want and I'm gonna get it. Which I don't mind usually. But if you're gonna be like that as a heroine, you need to understand the gravity of the situation, where she didn't. I don't mind reading younger characters, but the problem with this series to me is they are reading really young. And for the context of the book, I'm like, this is not YA. Why is it coming off as YA? Mafia is not a YA trope. This is what this series feels like. It feels like a young YA attempt at the Mafia world with these young characters, and I'm gonna drag them through the mud, that have no depth or darkness or any substance to them. Like, these kids to me are reading as like Gossip Girl, rich kids with tons of fucking money, a hell of a lot of privilege, and a lot of fucking time. And that's just not what I want to read in a Mafia book. Now, I feel like Cora stuffed herself up a little bit. She created all these characters in the Born in Blood and the Camorra Chronicles that had so much trauma. Like, all the men, like Luca, Remo Falcone, like, they were petrifying, they were scary. They did bad things and they pushed boundaries. They tested your morals when you read about them and fell in love with them. And they had good reasons, and there was a whole lot more darkness to her previous books. But because she's done that, and then they've got these characters have gone and had kids, they've grown up, they've dealt with their trauma, and they've become soft. And now she's trying to write a Mafia series with all these rich little Mafia kids that didn't have the same lifestyle as their parents. And it's not working. Like, even Dante in Anna's book, his whole reaction to Santino, soft. Like, so soft. I don't understand. I'm like, this is the Mafia. This is meant to be dark. It's meant to test your morals. It's meant to make you feel uncomfortable. It's meant to be glamorous. It's meant to be bad. This is coming off as so fucking fluffy. I cannot deal. If a capo found out that one of his soldiers, who he appointed the job to bodyguard his child, was sleeping with his child, regardless if you like the dude or not, there would be repercussions and serious ones. Obviously, Corey just doesn't, I don't know, I'm guessing, okay? Making an assumption that she just doesn't want to write dark romances, as dark as what she can do. And unfortunately, I can tell, reading these books, she could totally stir up dark plots. And she could make these kids have some really, like, hectic stories. Like I even said to Jen the other day, you know, make one of the girls get sexually assaulted or something like that, you know what I mean? So there's just some depth to this Mafia world that's meant to be dark, that was originally written as dark. Also, Ammo and Greta, I'm gonna read every book, but like Ammo and Greta, now I'm really fucking worried. Because that book has the potential, just like Marcella's, just like Anna's did, to be like a banger. And I don't feel like it's gonna get there. Especially with these past two books. Like, I don't know what she's doing, man. But it's just reading young. It's lacking the Mafia in general. It doesn't really feel like a Mafia book when you read it. There's barely any Mafia aspect to these stories. I'm just not liking the direction that she's taken these characters. And that's okay. I know some people love this series. I'm just not one of them. And I'm just going to be completely real. Does that mean I'm not going to support Cora anymore? Does that mean I'm not going to talk about her books anymore? Absolutely not. I will talk about Twisted Emotions to the day I fucking die. That's my favorite book ever. And it's one of my most read books ever. But yeah, this series is just not doing it. I just want to touch base on something before I finish this video. And this is just a personal opinion. And I think that this is affecting romance, the genre, and affecting dark romance and certain tropes like forbidden, Mafia, age gap. Since TikTok, we all know I'm not a massive fan of TikTok, BookTok in general, and what it's done to the romance community, but ever since TikTok blew up, BookTok specifically, to the point where authors were getting so much recognition, their books were now getting put in stores like Barnes and Noble. I have noticed with a lot of books that are coming out that are marketed as Mafia, forbidden, age gap, are not that. Like, I've come across a couple of Mafia books that I've tried to read and I'm like, this is not dark enough. I've come across some forbidden romances and I'm like, this isn't forbidden enough. I've come across some age gaps and I'm like, I wouldn't even technically call this an age gap. And I feel like, again, this is just me making up my own opinions and making an assumption. I feel like authors are altering their writing and how they're writing certain tropes, that their book will blow up on BookTok and end up in store. Because if you're going to write something that's super, super forbidden, super dark, it's most likely not going to end up in store. But if you can dim it down but still market it as that, then you will probably have a better chance of getting that book in store. I've just noticed as of recently, a lot of authors, like even illustrated covers, right? I've always steered away from them, but now that a lot of illustrated covers are getting hype on BookTok and they're getting in store, I've seen like people, certain authors who never use illustrated covers now use illustrated covers. It's not wrong by them. They're using TikTok to market their books and trying to sell their books. I get it, but it's affecting a lot of people's experience reading. There, I said it, okay? I said it. I had to get up and walk around because I had pins and needles and I hate my hair. Before we wrap up this video, I just want to touch base on some things that specifically annoyed me about by Virtue I Fall. Is that what it's even called? I don't even know. First off, just some, it's just some things that I picked up while I was reading it that you might be interested in knowing. To me, it kind of read like a rom-com. If I wanted to read a rom-com, I would not pick a Mafia trope. I can appreciate kind of rom-com banter at times in a Mafia book, but when the whole relationship kind of is reading like a rom-com, I'm not into it, especially when it's Mafia. The whole forbidden aspect for me was kind of lost. I didn't feel like they were forbidden, and I didn't feel like the age gap was big enough. Couple of pointers, the sex was good. I did enjoy the sex scenes, but again, there was a couple of things. If you haven't read the book, you might want to skip past this part because I am going to give something away. But I didn't enjoy like Santino like fingering her and then breaking her hymen and then having blood on his fingers. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you broke a hymen with your fingers? A lot of authors write this in their stories and I don't like it. I'm like, really? Can we stop this narrative that all girls bleed when they break their hymens or have sex or get fingered for the first time? Because that's not always the case. You don't always bleed, doll. You don't need to bleed. We don't need to make these Mafia virgin princesses bleed all the time. Anyway, overall, didn't really like it. Gave it a 3 stars rating because it wasn't terrible. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever read, but it just did not hit the spot. And in comparison to my favorite books like Twisted Pride, Twisted Emotions, Bound by Honor, they're not even like on the same page whatsoever. So if you enjoyed this, even though it was me just ranting, thumbs it up, subscribe before leaving. I'm sorry if you're offended. I'm sorry, Cora. I still love you and I'm still going to read your books. Twisted Emotions and Twisted Pride are still my favorite books ever, but you know, I'm just feeling a little bit disappointed in this next generation series. Alright, that's it. I hope you guys have a good day wherever you are. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.